Mira stared at the message on her phone. "Don't look back, find your brother, trust no one, not even Jackson." Her mother's words sent a chill through her. Jackson had saved her life. He had been the only person standing between her and the people trying to drag her back into the shadows. But if her own mother didn't trust him, could she? She flicked her gaze toward Jackson, who was watching the horizon, eyes scanning for threats. His body was tense, muscles coiled like a predator waiting to pounce. If he suspected her hesitation, he didn't show it. She locked the phone and shoved it deep into her pocket. For now, she'd keep the message to herself. "Get some rest," Jackson said without looking at her. "We'll move again in a few hours." Mira nodded, but sleep was the last thing on her mind. As the hours stretched into the dead of night, she sat with her back against the cold warehouse, all thinking. She had spent her entire life feeling out of place, a nobody, a girl with no power, no influence, no voice. Now she was at the center of something far bigger than she had ever imagined, and she had a twin brother out there somewhere, alive. If she had survived the program, what had happened to him? The thought haunted her. The next morning, Jackson handed her a gun and a black backpack filled with supplies. "We're leaving." "Where?" "West Virginia." She frowned. "What's in West Virginia?" "A contact. Someone who can help us find your brother." Mira studied him carefully. "You're sure about that?" Jackson narrowed his eyes. "You questioning me now?" "Should I?" A slow smirk tugged at his lips. "Good. You're thinking like a survivor now." He turned and headed toward the SUV, leaving her no choice but to follow. She glanced at her phone again, her mother's warning still burning in her mind. She wasn't sure who she could trust, but she was damn sure about one thing: she was going to find her brother, and she was going to burn down anyone who got in her way. Mira sat in the passenger seat, gripping the edge of her seatbelt as Jackson maneuvered the black SUV through the abandoned back roads. The roads were wet from the morning rain, the sky still cloaked in gray. There were no streetlights, no signs of life, just miles and miles of thick, misty forest surrounding them. It felt like they were driving straight into the unknown. Mira's fingers hovered over the phone in her pocket. Her mother's warning still echoed in her mind. Don't trust Jackson. But she had no other choice. Not yet. "So who's this contact we're meeting?" she asked, breaking the silence. Jackson kept his eyes on the road. "Name's Bishop. Ex-military. Ex-black ops. The kind of guy who knows things most people shouldn't." "And he knows about my brother?" "If anyone does, it's him." Mira watched Jackson closely, searching for any sign of deception, but he was hard to read. His expression was neutral, calm, like a man who had spent his entire life lying. Still, she needed to play along for now. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Jackson sighed, gripping the wheel tighter. "Because I know what it's like to be used, to be someone's weapon." Mira scoffed. "And you're different now." His jaw clenched. "I'm trying to be." She didn't know whether to believe him. Before she could respond, something caught her eye in the side mirror. Headlights, 2 sets, following them. Her heart pounded. "We've got company," she muttered. Jackson glanced at the mirror, then cursed under his breath. "Hold on." Without warning, he yanked the wheel, sending the SUV veering off the road and onto a muddy trail through the trees. The tires screeched. The vehicle bounced violently, branches scraping against the sides. Behind them, the 2 black SUVs followed, engines roaring. They weren't losing them. Mira reached for the gun Jackson had given her earlier. "Who the hell are they?" she shouted. Jackson didn't answer. A loud pop echoed through the trees. Gunfire. A bullet shattered the back windshield. "Shit!" Jackson floored the gas, swerving between trees, but their pursuers were gaining. Mira unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed into the back seat, gripping the pistol tightly. The second SUV pulled up alongside them, a man leaning out of the window with an automatic rifle. Mira barely had time to think. She aimed, pulled the trigger. The shot hit the man in the shoulder, sending him sprawling back inside the car. Jackson smirked. "Not bad. Drive faster," she snapped. Another shot rang out, this one from the first SUV behind them. The bullet struck their rear tire. The SUV swerved wildly. Jackson fought for control, but the vehicle was going too fast. They hit a tree. The world spun. Mira was thrown forward, crashing against the dashboard. Pain exploded through her skull. For a few seconds, everything was a blur. Then, footsteps, voices. They were coming. Mira groaned, forcing herself up. Her vision swam, but she could make out the figures moving toward the wrecked SUV. Armed. Men. She reached for her gun, but a hand grabbed her wrist. Jackson. His eyes burned into hers. "Run!" he whispered. Her breath caught. "What?" "Run, Mira! Now!" Before she could argue, he shoved her out of the car and into the trees. Mira stumbled, adrenaline surging through her veins, then she ran. Branches tore at her skin as she sprinted through the dense forest, heart hammering. Behind her, gunfire erupted. She didn't look back. She just kept running. Mira ran. Branches lashed against her arms. Her legs burned from the uneven terrain, and her heart pounded against her ribs. The forest was dense, swallowing her whole as she plunged deeper into the darkness. Gunfire cracked behind her. A sharp scream. "Jackson!" Mira stumbled to a stop, gasping for breath. Her mind screamed at her to turn back, to help him, but her mother's warning rang louder in her head. Trust no one, not even Jackson. Was this his plan all along? Had he led her into this ambush? Her gut twisted. She wasn't sure of anything anymore. But she knew one thing. If she got caught, she was dead. Or worse. She pushed forward, her boots sinking into the wet ground as she tore through the undergrowth. Then, voices, close. She ducked behind a fallen tree, pressing herself into the mud. The footsteps were closing in. "Spread out," a deep voice ordered. She couldn't have gotten far. Mira clenched her jaw. Her fingers tightened around the gun in her grip, but her hands were shaking. She had fired a gun before, but in a moving car. That had been instinct. Now she was alone. Now she had to choose. Fight or die. A shadow moved past her, hiding. Spot, a man with a rifle, his face obscured by a black mask. Mira held her breath. Another set of footsteps approached from the opposite direction. Trapped. She had seconds to act. Her grip tightened. One shot, one chance. She sprang up, aimed. At the closest man. A hand clamped over her mouth from behind. Panic exploded in her chest. She thrashed, tried to swing the gun around. "Quiet," a voice hissed into her ear. She froze. That voice, Jackson. Her pulse pounded as he pulled her back into the shadows, his grip firm but not painful. His face was smeared with blood. His jacket torn, but he was alive. He pressed a finger to his lips, then he pointed ahead. Mira's stomach twisted. More of them. 6, armed. She and Jackson were outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped in the middle of nowhere. She swallowed hard, forcing her fear down. They had one chance. Jackson met her gaze, nodded, and then they attacked. Mira barely had time to think before Jackson moved. Like a shadow in the night, he struck. A knife flashed in his hand as he lunged at the nearest man, dragging the blade clean across his throat. The wet gurgle of his dying breath filled the air. Mira's heart pounded, but she didn't freeze. The second man turned toward Jackson, raising his rifle. Mira pulled the trigger. The gun kicked in her hands, the sound shattering the silence of the forest. The bullet struck the man in the chest and he dropped like a stone. The others reacted fast. Gunfire erupted, bullets tearing through the trees. Jackson grabbed Mira and yanked her behind the cover of a fallen log. 2 down, 4 left, he muttered, eyes scanning their surroundings. Mira's breathing was ragged. This wasn't like shooting from a car. This was real, up close. She had just killed a man. Her hands trembled. Jackson grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. "Focus," he said sharply. "We don't have time for a breakdown." She swallowed hard. The footsteps were closing in. She forced herself to push the horror away. Later. I'll deal with it later. Right now, she had to survive. Jackson peeked over the log. A bullet whizzed past his head, splintering the wood. He cursed. "They're closing in." Mira checked her gun. 3 bullets left, not enough. Then, movement. One of the men was flanking them, creeping through the undergrowth to get behind them. Mira met Jackson's eyes. He saw it too. No words were needed. Jackson gave her a nod. "Take him." Mira took a shaky breath, then moved. She slipped into the darkness, keeping low as she circled around. The man had no idea she was there. She raised the gun. Then a branch snapped under her foot. The man spun. Mira fired. The bullet grazed his shoulder. He cursed and lunged at her, knocking the gun from her hand. Panic flared, but she reacted fast. She grabbed a rock from the ground and smashed it into his temple. He staggered, dazed. She didn't give him a chance to recover. She grabbed her knife and drove it into his gut. His eyes widened, then he crumpled. Mira stood there, panting, hands shaking. Jackson appeared beside her. "Good," he said, nodding approvingly. Mira didn't feel good, but she didn't have time to dwell on it. Gunfire still roared behind them. Jackson handed her another gun, taken from one of the dead men. "3 left," he murmured. Mira tightened her grip. Then, together, they moved. This time they were the hunters. Mira's pulse pounded as she and Jackson moved through the dense forest, shadows clinging to them like ghosts. Every breath felt like fire in her lungs, but she pushed forward. 3 men left. They were still outnumbered, still in danger. But something felt off. The remaining gunmen had stopped shooting. Silence crept through the trees, thick with something worse than fear, calculation. They were waiting. Jackson pulled Mira behind a tree, his grip tight on her wrist. His face was set in stone, his eyes scanning the darkness like a predator sensing a trap. "They're not chasing us," she whispered. Jackson nodded grimly. "Because they don't have to." A shiver ran down her spine, then a voice calm, steady, amused. "Well, well, you made quite the mess, Jackson." Mira stiffened. The voice was deep, smooth like silk over a blade. Jackson went rigid. Mira had never seen that look on his face before. Anger, yes. Frustration, sure. But this was different. This was something close to fear. He turned his head, slightly, and whispered, "Mira, whatever happens, don't say a word." Her stomach twisted. Who was this man? She slowly peered around the tree, and her breath caught. A figure stood a few feet ahead, dressed in black. He looked older than Jackson, maybe late 30s, with slicked-back dark hair and piercing gray eyes that shone like a wolf's in the moonlight. Unlike the others, he wasn't holding a gun. He didn't need to. Because the moment he spoke, it was clear. He was the one in control. "I should have known you'd betray us eventually," the man said, tilting his head at Jackson like a disappointed teacher. Jackson's jaw clenched. "I was never one of you." The man chuckled. "No." He took a slow step forward. Mira tensed. "Then tell me, Jackson," the man continued, voice smooth as poison. "Why is it that every time you run, you always find your way back to me?" Jackson didn't answer. Mira swallowed hard. Who was this man? What did he mean by back? "To me?" The stranger's eyes flicked to her. "And this must be the girl," he mused, lips curling into a smirk. "The one everyone wants." Mira's stomach dropped. He knew who she was, and worse, he had been expecting her. "Come now," the man said, taking another step closer. "We both know how this ends. You're outnumbered, outgunned." His gray eyes gleamed. "Give her to me, Jackson, and I'll let you live." Mira's breath hitched. Jackson didn't move, didn't speak. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then Jackson turned his head slightly, not to her, but toward the darkness behind them, like he was waiting for something. Mira's blood ran cold. Was this it? Had he brought her here on purpose? Was this the moment he betrayed her? She took a small step back, heart hammering. Jackson finally spoke. "You should have brought more men." The stranger's smirk faltered, and then Jackson grabbed Mira's wrist and ran. Gunfire exploded through the night. Mira barely had time to think, to breathe. All she knew was that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because whoever that man was, he wasn't hunting them. He was playing with them, and the game had only just begun. Mira's legs burned as she ran, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Jackson's grip on her wrist was iron tight, dragging her through the forest at a breakneck pace. Gunfire cracked behind them, bullets whizzing through the trees, splintering bark. Her mind was reeling. Who was that man? How did he know Jackson? And why did it feel like Jackson had been waiting for him? They burst through a clearing, and Jackson suddenly yanked her to the ground. "Stay low," he hissed, eyes scanning the darkness. Mira's pulse pounded in her ears. The gunmen weren't chasing them anymore, which only meant one thing. "They don't need to follow us," she whispered, realization hitting her like ice. Jackson's jaw clenched. "They already know where we're going." The word sent a chill through her spine. She turned to Jackson, her heart hammering. "Who is he?" Silence. Jackson didn't meet her eyes. That made her stomach sink. "Jackson," she pressed, voice sharper now. "Who is he?" Finally, Jackson let out a slow breath. "His name is Damien Cross." Mira stiffened. That name, it was familiar. Too familiar. Then it clicked. Her mother's last words, before she died. "Never let him find you, Mira. Never let Damien Cross find you." Her blood turned to ice. Damien Cross was the man her mother had been hiding her from, and now he had found her. Mira swallowed hard. "You knew him," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson's silence was answer enough. Rage bubbled in her chest. "How long?" she demanded. "How long have you known?" Jackson's gaze darkened. "I've always known." The world tilted. Mira staggered back, heart pounding. All this time, Jackson had known. The anger in her chest turned into something colder. "You lied to me," she whispered. Jackson's hands curled into fists. "I was protecting you." Mira let out a bitter laugh. "Protecting me?" she echoed. "You led me straight to him." Jackson's eyes flashed. "You think this was my plan?" he snapped. "You think I wanted this?" Mira glared at him. "I don't know what you want, Jackson, because you never told me the truth." Jackson exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "There are things you don't understand, Mira." "Then make me understand." Jackson hesitated, then, "He owns me," Jackson admitted, voice low. Mira stilled. "What?" Jackson's jaw clenched. "I wasn't always your boss, Mira." His voice was tight, controlled. "Before the billions, before the power, I was nothing. A street rat. A nobody." He met her eyes. Something haunted in his gaze. Damien changed that. Mira's stomach twisted. "He made you?" Jackson nodded stiffly. "Everything I have, everything I built, it was because of him." Silence stretched between them. Mira could barely breathe. Her mother had spent years hiding her from Damien Cross, and she had walked straight into the arms of his most valuable asset. Jackson took a step closer, his voice low. "I never wanted this for you, Mira." Her throat tightened. "But it's happening," she whispered. Jackson didn't deny it. Mira's hands trembled. "Are you going to turn me in?" Jackson's eyes darkened. "No." Mira exhaled a shaky breath. Then a voice echoed through the trees, calm, controlled, amused. "I gave you a choice, Jackson." Mira's breath hitched. Jackson stiffened. Damien, he was here, and this time he wasn't alone. Dozens of figures emerged from the darkness, gunmen surrounding them. Mira's heart pounded. She and Jackson were trapped. There was no way out. Damien stepped forward, that same smirk playing on his lips. "I'll ask you one last time," he said smoothly. "Give her to me." Silence. Mira turned to Jackson. This was it, the moment of truth. Would he save her? Or had he been leading her to this moment all along? Jackson's body was tense, his breathing sharp. Then his hand moved to his gun, and he pointed it at Damien. A flicker of surprise crossed Damien's face. Then amusement. "You always did have a rebellious streak," he mused. Mira's stomach twisted. Jackson was choosing her. But Damien had the numbers. They were still going to lose. Damien smirked. "Very well," he murmured. He nodded. The gunmen raised their weapons. Mira's breath caught. Jackson squeezed her hand. Then A deafening explosion tore through the night. Fire, smoke, screams, and suddenly, the hunters became the hunted. The explosion ripped through the night, a deafening roar of fire and chaos. Mira barely had time to react before Jackson tackled her to the ground, shielding her body with his own. The heat seared against her skin, and the force of the blast sent dirt and debris flying in every direction. Screams echoed through the forest. Gunfire erupted, but this time, it wasn't aimed at them. Something had changed. Jackson pushed himself up, his jaw clenched. His eyes darted across the battlefield as gunmen scattered in confusion, some shouting into their radios, others struggling. To regroup, Mira coughed, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Who? Jackson pulled her up roughly, his grip tight. We're not alone. Mira's pulse pounded. Not alone. A second later, shadows moved through the trees, fast, precise. Gunmen dropped like flies, taken down by unseen forces. It wasn't just an ambush, it was a slaughter, and Damien knew it. Mira's gaze snapped to him. For the first time since she had met him, his composed smirk faltered. He stepped back, his sharp grey eyes scanning the battlefield. Then, a sharp whistle, a signal. His remaining men regrouped, forming a tight, defensive circle around him. Jackson pulled Mira toward the tree line. We need to move. Mira hesitated. But who? Jackson shook his head. No time. They ran. Behind them, the gunfire didn't stop. Whoever had launched the attack was ripping through Damien's forces like they had been waiting for this moment. And maybe they had. Jackson dragged Mira through the forest, their breaths ragged, their bodies pushed to the limit. Branches cut at her skin, her legs burned. But she couldn't stop. Not now. Not when something bigger was happening, something she didn't understand yet. Jackson's grip on her tightened. We need to get to the safe house. Safe house? Mira's mind reeled. He had planned for this? Before she could ask, voices rang out behind them. Not Damien's men. A different language, one she didn't recognize. Jackson cursed under his breath. Mira barely had time to process the situation before figures emerged from the darkness. Not Damien's soldiers, something worse. They were dressed in all black, tactical gear, their faces hidden behind masks. Their weapons were sleek, military grade. These weren't mercenaries, they were professionals. Mira's stomach twisted. Who the hell were they? The leader, a tall figure with sharp, calculating eyes, lifted his rifle and spoke Jackson's name. Not as an enemy, not as a target, but like they knew him, like they had been waiting for him. Mira turned to Jackson. His expression was unreadable. No fear, no shock, just acceptance. The leader stepped forward. Long time, Jackson. Mira's blood ran cold. Jackson had expected them. The betrayal she had feared before felt small compared to the truth clawing at her now. Jackson wasn't just running from Damien. He was caught between two sides, and she was trapped in the middle. The leader lowered his gun slightly, tilting his head. You owe us. Jackson's grip on Mira's hand tightened. His voice was calm. Steady, but Mira could hear the weight behind it. I know. The leader smirked. Then let's talk. Mira's chest tightened. Jackson wasn't fighting this. He knew them. And worse, he owed them. Who the hell had she fallen in love with, and more importantly, what was he about to trade her for? Mira stood frozen, her back against the tree, heart threatening to beat its way out of her chest. The masked soldiers surrounding them were unlike Damien's men, more controlled, more precise. Not chaotic mercenaries, but trained, coordinated, efficient. They didn't move like hired guns. They moved like they owned the battlefield. And what chilled her the most was that Jackson wasn't surprised to see them. The leader, still masked, stepped closer, speaking with the calm detachment of a man who never needed to raise his voice to command fear. You know what we want, Graves. Jackson didn't flinch. I don't have it anymore. You never had it. She did. The soldier turned to Mira. She stiffened. What the hell are you talking about? She demanded. Jackson spoke, before the man could. Don't, he said sharply, but Mira was already stepping forward. No more secrets, she snapped. I've been hunted, shot at, lied to. If I'm going to die, I'm at least going to understand why. The soldier glanced at Jackson, then back at her, and slowly removed his mask. Mira's breath caught. He looked no older than 30, with sharp cheekbones, grey-green eyes, and a burn scar running along the side of his neck. He stared at her for a long time. You were supposed to be dead, he said. Mira narrowed her eyes. Yeah? So? We're a lot of people, apparently. He gave a cold smile. I'm Commander Cade, Black Vault, Division 0. You were part of our program. I didn't choose to be part of anything. No one does, he said, voice like a knife. But that doesn't make you any less valuable. She turned to Jackson. You knew about this? He nodded slowly. I knew they existed. I didn't know they'd find us tonight. Commander Cade chuckled. You think we found you? Jackson, we've been watching since Tokyo. You led us to her. Mira stepped back like she'd been slapped. Jackson's jaw tightened. That's not true. You sent the signal, Jax. Jackson didn't deny it. Mira's voice cracked. You sold me out? No, Jackson said quickly. I made a deal. With them? She shouted. After everything we've been through, you handed me to another secret government freak show? It was the only way to keep Damien from getting you. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Commander? Cade took a step forward. Let me explain what your boyfriend forgot to mention, Mira. She turned to him, trembling with fury. You're not just one of 9 experiments. You're the only one with access to the ghost files, the last memory logs of your father, the only man who ever hacked Black Vault. Mira blinked. What are you talking about? Your genetic structure isn't the only thing they modified, he said. They embedded encrypted data inside your hippocampus. Buried. Files. Ones your father stole before he disappeared. You're a walking hard drive, sweetheart. Mira's knees nearly gave out. She wasn't just a target. She was a key, a secret weapon, and everyone wanted what was inside her head. She backed away from both of them, Cade, Jackson, her breath coming faster. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. I just wanted a normal life. You were never going to get one, Cade said. Jackson stepped forward. Mira, she pointed her gun at him. Don't come near me. His face twisted in pain. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did, she said, voice shaking. You already did. Commander Cade raised a brow. You want the truth? Fine, you can come with us or run. But if you run, Damien will find you before sunrise. He won't kill you. He'll strip you down, extract the data, and dump your body in a river. And what will you do? She spat. Keep you alive. That's not comfort. It's not meant to be. The silence between them was thunderous. Jackson stepped closer again. You said you wanted to understand, he said gently. Mira stared at him. I want the truth, she whispered. Every single piece. Jackson gave a slow nod. Then, you'll have to follow me into hell to get it. She lowered the gun, barely. Her eyes flicked to Cade. If I go with you, I want to access the ghost files, all of it. Cade's smile didn't reach his eyes. You're more like your father than you realize. Mira's lips curled into something halfway between a smirk and a war cry. Good. Because starting now, she wasn't just running anymore. She was going to burn the whole system down. The jet was dark inside, cold and quiet like a tomb. Mira sat strapped into one of the leather seats, arms folded tightly over her chest, her jaw clenched as the hum of the engines vibrated through her bones. She hadn't spoken a word since boarding. Commander Cade sat across from her, typing into a tablet with that same surgical calmness. His men were scattered around the plane, masked, still, alert, like statues trained to kill. And then there was Jackson, sitting 2 seats behind her, silent. Mira hadn't even looked at him since they left the forest. He hadn't tried to explain himself again. Maybe he knew nothing he said would matter anymore. She didn't trust him, not fully, but she wasn't stupid. She needed him, for now. Cade looked up from his tablet. We land in 30 minutes. The facility's underground, remote, shielded. Nothing can track you once we're inside. Great, Mira said flatly. Just what I always wanted. Another cage. Cade smirked. This one you walk into willingly. She wanted to punch him. Instead, she stared out the window into the endless night. Her thoughts circled the same thing again and again. The ghost files. Data hidden inside her brain. Planted. There by her father. And now the world wanted it back. But what exactly was inside her? And why did it scare people like Damien Cross and Commander Cade? 35 minutes later, Mira was being escorted through a series of narrow white corridors deep beneath the earth. Cameras tracked every movement. The walls were too clean, too bright, like they were trying to bleach out all the dirt this place was built on. They led her to a small room, one chair, one screen, a thin wire with a sensor at the end. "This is how it starts," she asked Cade as he set the device down. "You'll trigger the memory archive," he said. "The files are encrypted into your long-term memory clusters. This won't hurt, but it will feel strange. Define strange. Like watching yourself drown in a past you didn't know you had." She stared at him, comforting. He stepped back. Jackson appeared in the doorway. Mira hesitated, then gave a sharp nod. "Let's do this." She sat down. The cold wire touched the side of her head. The screen flashed. Then, darkness. Mira blinked. She was standing on a sidewalk. Wet asphalt glimmered under a yellow streetlight. People bustled past. No one noticed her. But she noticed him. A tall man in a navy trench coat, a briefcase clutched in one hand, a small girl's hand in the other. Her heart dropped. The little girl was her and the man her father. She hadn't seen his face since she was 6. But it all rushed back like a flood tearing through a dam. His smile, his laugh, the way he called her Starshine. She tried to move, tried to speak. But this was just a memory. She was a ghost inside her own past. The scene shifted. Now her father sat at a desk in a dark room. He was whispering into a recorder. She stepped closer and heard the words, "If you're seeing this, Mira, they found you." She froze. "They'll say you're special, they'll say it's a gift, but it's not, it's a lock and you're the key." The room began to blur. Mira's breathing quickened. "Inside, you are the coordinates to something they buried, something they swore never existed. Project Eden." The memory cracked. Her father's face distorted. His voice warped into static. The screen in front of her blinked red. Alarms began to blare. In the real world, Mira jolted in the chair. Jackson grabbed her shoulders. "Mira, what did you see?" She gasped for air. "Project Eden," she choked. "My father said, it's inside me. The coordinates." Commander Cade stormed in, eyes wide. "You accessed Eden?" Mira looked at him, sweat dripping down her temple. "What is it?" she demanded. Cade exchanged a glance with Jackson. Then, quietly, he said, "It's not a place." Mira blinked. "Then what is it?" Cade exhaled slowly. "It's a kill switch." The words echoed like gunshots in Mira's ears. "It's a kill switch." She stared at Commander Cade, her pulse thudding in her throat. "A kill switch for what?" she demanded. Cade didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped to the terminal near the wall and tapped into the surveillance feed. Rows of live data scrolled down the screen. Neural patterns, memory threads, encryption chains. Mira's name was at the top in red, then he said it flat, cold, unapologetic. "Humanity." Mira's world dropped out from under her. "Excuse me?" she whispered. Jackson stepped closer, his voice low. "It's not what you think." "No?" she snapped, turning to him. "Because it sounds exactly like what I think." Cade folded his arms. "Your father wasn't just some rogue data analyst. He used to work for Black Vault. He helped engineer the first digital neuroweapon, a virus that could wipe out entire systems." "Or people." "Systems?" Mira asked. "You mean like computers?" Cade shook his head. "Brains." She backed away from him. "That's not possible." "It is," Cade said. "With nanotech, laced into DNA, activated through neural recall and memory access. And my brain has it." "Yes," Cade said. "Encrypted deep, dormant, until your mind recalls the coordinates your father buried. Then it activates." And it spreads. Mira's breath caught. Spreads how? Through signal. Through memory. Through eye contact even, he said. It was designed to collapse command structures, military networks, government leaders, all in one synchronized drop. But your father knew it was too dangerous. He encoded it, split it into fragments, and locked the trigger inside you before he vanished. Mira ran a hand through her hair, pacing now, panicking. So you're telling me I'm a walking apocalypse? No, Jackson said softly. You're the only one who can stop it. She froze. I don't understand, she said. Your father didn't just build the virus, Jackson said. He built the cure, but he couldn't trust anyone else with it. So he put that in you too. The same way he hid the kill codes, he locked the antidote in your memory. Meaning what? She asked. Cade stepped forward. It means whoever gets to you first decides the fate of the world. Silence crashed between them. Mira sank into the chair, shaking. So what now? She whispered. You lock me in a box? Wait until someone makes the wrong move and I go off like a nuclear bomb? No, Cade said. We find the rest of the fragments, before Damien does. Mira blinked. There. Are more? Your brother, Jackson said. That stopped her cold. He has a piece too, Jackson explained. Your father couldn't risk putting it all in one place, so he split it between his children. Mira whispered, We were the vaults. Jackson nodded. You were never just experiments, you were insurance. She buried her face in her hands. Her skin felt electric, like something inside her was trying to claw its way out. Memories that weren't hers, thoughts that didn't feel like hers. Faces, shadows, flashes of moments she'd never lived. What's happening to me? She gasped. Cade grabbed the scanner and checked the readings. Her recall's escalating, he muttered. It's waking up. Jackson stepped forward, grabbing Mira's hand. Breathe, just breathe. I can't, she gasped. I feel like I'm unraveling. Cade glanced at the readings. His expression darkened. If this keeps up, the data will spill into her conscious mind. She'll become volatile, a live feed of every encrypted line in the vault. What does that mean? Mira asked, her voice trembling. It means if you slip, Mira, you could shut down entire cities with a thought. Her eyes locked on his, and she asked the question she never wanted to ask. What happens if I lose control? Cade didn't hesitate. I'll put a bullet in your skull. The room fell into a brutal silence, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Mira didn't argue, because part of her finally believed it. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She was a fuse, and someone out there was ready to light the match.